Shalom Israel, Royal Redeemer Christ Church. I'm Brother Aaron, and today we're going to go over another misunderstood or misconstrued verse out the Bible. A lot of Christians have been taught that this is another verse along with 1 Timothy chapter 4 verses 3 through 5, that any food or anything we can take into our vessels, that we can consume any type of food. So this verse has also been commonly taught to deceive people. A lot of Christian pastors teach this verse to people, their congregations, once again making you think that it's fine that you can eat anything. Okay, so we're going to read it within the proper context. We're going to see exactly what this verse is talking about. We're going to Mark chapter 7, and we're going to read verses 18 and 19. Mark chapter 7, verse 18 and 19, when you get it read.
And he said unto them, Are ye so without understanding also? Do we not perceive that whatsoever thing from without entered into the man, it cannot defile him? Because it entered not into his heart, but into the belly, and goeth out into the draw, purging all meats.
Okay, and they stop right there, they close the book, and they say, see, whatever entered into a man don't defile him. Because they go in and they come out through the other end. It's not what going in, meaning you can consume anything in your vessel. It all matters about what comes out. Okay, so we're going to see partially some of it at right. It does matter what comes out, what goes into the mind and the heart. But that's not saying you can consume anything or any type of meat or food into your vessel. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to start at verse 1, and we're going to take the whole chapter within the proper context, and we're going to see exactly what Christ was teaching. So we're going to start at verse 1, Mark chapter 7, verse 1. When you get it, read it.
Then came together unto him the Pharisees, and certain of the scribes, which came from Jerusalem. And when they saw some of his disciples eat bread with defiled, that is to say, with unwashen hands, they found fault.
Okay, so the disciples and Christ were eating bread. The Pharisees came and saw them eating this bread or this meat. In this particular context, bread, we could be talking about literal bread, or bread can also just mean food. We don't know specifically maybe what type of food besides just bread. But they saw Christ and the disciples eating this bread, and they had fault. The issue was they were eating with unwashed hands. They didn't wash their hands, and they found an issue or problem with that. Go ahead.
For the Pharisees and all the Jews, except they wash their hands, oft eat not, holding the traditions of the elders.
So this was a tradition of the elders that the Jews had, that the Pharisees and Sadducees, they stuck to. They would eat nothing unless their hands were washed and clean. Come on.
And when they came from the market, except they wash, they eat not. And many other things there be, which they have received to hold, as the washing of cups and pots, brassen vessels, and of tables.
So remember that. This was a tradition held amongst the Pharisees. We're not talking about law, we're not talking about commandment. It was a tradition. Before they ate anything, the washing of hands, cups, pots, pans, all of that. Come on.
Then the Pharisees and scribes asked him, Why walk not thy disciples according to the tradition of the elders, but eat bread with unwashed hands? He answered and said unto them, Well hath Esaias prophesied of you hypocrites, as it is written, This people honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. Howbeit in vain do they worship me, teaching for the doctrines the commandments of men, for laying aside the commandment of God. Ye hold the tradition of men, as the washing of pots and cups, and many other such things ye do.
Okay, so Christ's response to these Pharisees was when they asked, why is it that you don't hold the tradition of the elders? They're not saying why you're not keeping the commandments of God. They saying, why is it that your disciples are not upholding the tradition of our elders? Christ's response to them is, why is it that you put aside the commandments of God and hold fast to the tradition of the elders? In other words, what's more important? The laws of God or the traditions of the elders? So this is the issue. Now we want to go. What I want to do now, I want to go to a quick precept. to kind of further explain what Christ was trying to show the disciples. Tradition is fine, as long as it's not violating the Lord. Some of that is nothing wrong with washing hands, what they was accusing, but that does not trump the laws of God. So let's go to Matthew, St. Matthew chapter 23. St. Matthew 23. And I want verses 25 through 27. You get it read.
Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye may clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess.
You see that? He said, woe to you. He called them hypocrites. They make sure the outside of things are clean. And notice he's giving us the same verbiage as we read in St. Matthew. For the washing of cups and pots and pans and all these vessels. He's telling them the same thing right here in Matthew the 23rd chapter. He calling them hypocrites, and he's showing them why they're hypocrites. They take the time, they make sure the outer appearance is looking good. Okay, whether it's the dress, the way they look, their appearance, even they're going back to the traditions. They make sure the cups are clean. But go ahead.
Thou blind Pharisee, cleanse first that which is within the cup and platter, that the outside of them may be clean also.
See that? He's saying first deal with what's on the inside. Talking about the heart, the mind, and this. Don't worry about so much about the outside. Come on.
Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye are like unto whited sepulchres.
He's comparing them to fancy graveyards, similar tombstones. Beautiful on the outside. Come on.
Which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones, and of all uncleanliness.
Okay, so he's making a comparison. He's letting them know, look, it's not about your tradition. The same way he accused them, he said, this is what you do. Everything about the Pharisees was about the outward appearance. Okay, it wasn't about the commandments of God or what defiles you, meaning what goes into the mind or the heart. Now let's go right back to St. Mark. Right back to Mark 7 and pick it up from verse 8 again.
For laying aside the commandment of God, ye hold the tradition of men, as the washing of pots and cups, and many other such things like ye do. And he said unto them, full well ye reject the commandment of God, that he may keep your own tradition. For Moses said, honor thy father and thy mother, and whosoever curseth father or mother, let him die the death.
So now he's giving an example how they forsook the commandments of God for their own tradition. The commandment said, honor thy father and mother. But this is what they replaced it with. Come on.
But he say, if a man shall say to his father or mother, it is korban, that is to say, a gift, by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, he shall be free.
But you say, talking about the commandment of God, says honor thy father and mother. But the Pharisees, their traditions say, put that to the side. As long as you come with a gift. In other words, as long as you doing something for them, hey, I take care of you. I bought you this. I support. I pay the bill. I do that. You don't have to honor, disrespect, do whatever. As long as you can look back and say, hey, because I did this, that's your honor. So Christ is just using an example how they took away the actual commandment under their mother and father and replaced it with their own tradition. Come on.
But ye say, if a man shall say to his father or mother, it is korban, that is to say, a gift, by whatsoever thou mightest profiteth me, he shall be free. And he suffer him no more to do aught for his father or his mother, making the word of God none effect through your tradition, which ye have delivered, and many such like things do ye. And when he had called all the people unto him, he said unto them, hearken unto me, every one of you, and understand. There is nothing from without a man that entering into him can defile him, but the thing which come out of him, those are they that defile the man.
Okay, so for example, if I had a cup right here, and this cup, the outside is dirty, or it fell on the floor, or I didn't wash it out, didn't wash the dish or whatever, and I drunk from this cup, that does not make me an unclean person. Spiritually, that is not what defiled me. If I had food before me, and I just got back working in the yard or whatever, and I picked up this food, this hamburger or whatever, and I started to munch out, chow down on this hamburger, just because my hands are unwashed, that does not defile me. That does not make me an unclean person. When you read the whole chapter, it says nothing about the particular type of food. It wasn't about the type of food they was eating. The whole point of the subject matter, when you read it in context, is the washing of hands. Go ahead and read that last verse one more time, verse 14.
And when he had called all the people unto him, he said unto him, Hearken unto me, every one of you, and understand. There is nothing from without a man that entering into him can defile him, but the things which come out of him, those are they that defile the man.
Okay, come on, verse 16.
If any man have ears to hear, let him hear.
If any man have ears to hear, let him hear.
And when he was entered into the house from the people, his disciples asked him concerning the parable. And he said unto them, Are ye so without understanding also? Do we not perceive that whatsoever thing from without entered into the man, it cannot defile him? Because it entered not into his heart, but into the belly, and goeth out into the draught, purging all meats. And he said, That which cometh out of the man, that defileth the man. For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. And all these things come from within and defile the man.
So now he's giving a specific example of things that defile the man. The things you let enter into your spirit, which comes out on the other end. And he's listing it, such as the wickedness, thefts, covetousness, wicked, deceit, lasciviousness, evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All of these things are what defile a man. Not eating with unwashed hands. Not eating something fell on the floor, it's dirty, you didn't wash the cup pot, bitch. That's not what defiles you. However, that's what the tradition of the elders or the Pharisees were. They were going around teaching and judging people for things like this. Had absolutely nothing to do with the commandments of God. Okay, let's go to Matthew chapter 6 real quick. Matthew chapter 6, verses 22 to 23. Matthew chapter 6, verse 22, 23. When you get it at the Bible.
The light of the Bible, Salakia, the light of the body is the eye.
The light of the body is the eye, meaning your mind. You ever heard the phrase, the mind's eye? This is what it's talking about. Come on.
If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness.
Okay. If your mind be pure, single, your whole body shall be full of light. But if your mind's eye, if your mind be evil, your whole body will be full of evil. Now let's give an example. Come on.
If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness?
You see that? So it's talking about, this is what goes into a man. It's talking about the mind's eye. If your eye is pure, or your mind is pure, that's what's going to come out. If your mind's eye is defiled, that's the actions of things going to come. You all go back to the verse, by their fruit you should know them. Or a good tree cannot produce bad fruit. Or a bad tree cannot produce good fruit. It's all tying into the same thing. Now let's go right back to St. Mark chapter 7. Read verse 21 through 23 one more time.
For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within and defile the man.
See that? So the whole concept or the whole point of this, pretty much this chapter that they use when I'm going to read it again. This is the one, verse 18. Are ye so without understanding also? Do ye not perceive that whatsoever thing from without enter into a man, it cannot defile him? Because it enter into his, it enter not into his heart, but into the belly, and goeth out into the draught, purging all meats. That's the correct understanding. of what Christ was teaching. Had nothing to do about a particular type of food. The Lord say, I change not. And to prove that, real quick, Leviticus 11 and 7. And the reason I'm going here, because amongst our people, this seems to be one of the main things that we use this verse to try to justify. One of the main things that we eat as a people that we should be, but they'll go back to scriptures like this, or 1 Timothy chapter 4, verses 3 through 5, long as you pray over to make you think it's okay. Go ahead and read that.
And the swine, though he divide the hoof and be cloven-footed, yet he cheweth not the cud. He is unclean to you.
Read it again.
And the swine,
that's the pig, the pork,
though he divide the hoof and be cloven-footed, yet he cheweth not the cud. He is unclean to you.
Read the next verse.
Of their flesh shall he not eat, and their carcass shall he not touch. They are unclean to you.
Of their flesh you should not eat, and their carcass you should not touch. It is unclean to you. However, the reason we learning the correct understanding of this is because this is one of the main verses that your Christian pastors will point out to you. They'll read that one verse. See, it's not what entered into a man that defiled, but what coming out. Then they'll close the book. And in your mind not being learned, okay, well, that means you can eat anything. No. So you're getting the correct understanding of what that was talking about. He was correcting the disciples. The whole point was about unwashed hands, not washing dishes, not washing cups. It wouldn't say it was justified to eat anything that you just read in the law that said it's unclean to you. Okay? I want to close with this. Job 14 and 4. Job chapter 14, verse 4. Whenever you get it, let the Bible speak.
Who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean?
Read it again.
Who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean?
Go ahead. What's the answer?
Not one.
Who can bring a clean thing, or who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean thing? No, not one. Okay, so you can't twist or misunderstand or take something that the Lord clearly said is unclean to you and make it clean. Okay? So that is the proper understanding of Mark chapter 7, particularly verse 18 through 19. With that, I hope y'all got some understanding. We want to say shalom. We out.